It was the second month of our marriage. My husband suddenly came home with a child. I had just married my husband, who had previously been married, and I was supposed to be a newlywed who was excited about her life until I noticed a little kid standing next to my husband as he returned home. It was the child that his ex-wife was supposed to have taken in when he divorced her. I decided to take the kid in. That's how he suddenly dropped the bomb out of nowhere. I was irritated by his one-sided statement made without consulting anyone, but I tried hard not to show it because I was in front of a small child. However, I was confused and perplexed inside. Then my husband said to me, "Please prepare the meal and bathe the child." After saying that, my husband went out for some reason. I was irritated by the unexpected event and his selfish behavior. I cooked dinner after making sure there was nothing the boy couldn't eat or was allergic to. Even though we were newlyweds, I was already considering divorce while I was cooking. The child looked at me and finished his meal fearfully, as if scared. What the hell, it's not poisoned, I thought to myself. He sat silently in the corner of the room, holding his knees after he finished eating. I waited awkwardly with him, wondering if I had made an intimidating face. My blood ran cold as soon as I finished cleaning up and removed his clothes to bathe him. The child has numerous bruises and burn marks on his back. The burns were from a cigarette being pressed against his back. I burst into tears because I was overcome with emotion. He was my husband and his ex-child. Of course, this was my first physical encounter with him, and I had no feelings for him, neither love nor hatred, but I was surely weirded out by this. I had a feeling something was wrong, so I checked his clothes and discovered that he was wearing dirty short sleeves underneath his clean long-sleeve clothes. My husband had brought a change of clothes in a paper bag, but when I looked inside, everything was brand new. My husband had purchased them on his way home for this child. According to what I've heard, many of the abuse cases we see on the news these days are often committed by mothers, their lovers, or their remarried partners. I had no idea an abusive adult and an abused child were so close to me. We got out of the bath and prepared the bed since it was time to sleep, but the child was still scared of something. I slept with my husband's child, who was anxious. He appeared relieved and almost dozed off to sleep, but he'd open his eyes again and again, checking to see if I was nearby before falling back asleep. While doing so, he eventually fell asleep. I looked at him sleeping. I felt a rush of complex emotions, a mixture of anger and sadness that I couldn't explain. I cried quietly so as not to disturb the sleeping child beside me. I was furious at my husband for taking him in without my permission, but I couldn't ignore it if my own child was in such a situation. It was a natural feeling. Even I'd be determined to take the child in. If he had decided not to take him in, it would have been a divorce case for me. By the way, my mother-in-law is sick and lives with their eldest son and his wife, so taking him in would be impossible, no matter how adorable her grandchildren are. My husband previously informed me that the child will be in elementary school the following year. He's only in kindergarten now, and his ex-wife raised him after their divorce. We discussed the possibility of me seeing the child at least once after we married. In the end, we didn't really do anything. I wonder what will happen in the future. I'm currently a stay-at-home mom, but I've been thinking about starting a part-time job during the day. But now, I guess I'll have to change my plans. To begin, I felt compelled to inform my husband of the horrific scar on the child's back. I texted my husband and he immediately called me. He just kept apologizing to me. I know that you didn't do it to him, so I spoke to him in a calm tone. My husband was even more concerned than I was. He asked me to take a picture, so I did the next day. No matter how many times I saw them, the scars looked painful. I apologized to him and took pictures. My husband had to contact a number of people, including the lawyer who had assisted him during the divorce, the police, and the Child Guidance Center. And he was in a panic. So I had no idea how this happened in the first place. And I was perplexed, and I didn't know what to do. I was so frustrated that I called him. I'm thinking of talking to my parents about it. He was being unclear about it. For now, come back here and we shall talk about it. That's what I told him. I left to talk with my husband first, who's panicking, before proceeding without understanding anything. Whether we take the child in or not, I am confident that this child will require some form of assistance. The most important thing will be to treat his mental health. The trauma inflicted on a small child's heart is profound. How should we help this child? I knew, of course, that my husband was divorced. I knew that he had a child and that his ex-wife had taken him in. However, there was a chance that we would have to take the child in if something went wrong. For some reason, I didn't think about that. I wanted to have a child of my own, and as a newlywed, I thought I had to do my best to cook a meal that would please my husband. I was nostalgic for the days when I was happy with my lovey-dovey aura in full bloom. I never thought that the situation would change so much in a day. My husband came home late at night, and we talked calmly. My husband and his ex-wife divorced when their child was 2 years old, because she had an affair. He could see his child once a week at first, but once the child started kindergarten, he could only see him once a month. However, he was recently restricted seeing his child only once every few months. The child began to speak less and less as the number of times he saw him decreased. My husband, who was concerned about the child, tried to persuade his ex to see him more after he married me, but he was unsuccessful. She would explain that the child was playing with his friends, that he had a cold, and that he was not used to seeing grown men. She refused to let him see the child, inventing some excuse for her absence, much like an elementary school student inventing an excuse for missing class. Then there was my husband's ex-wife's affair, which sparked their divorce. I assumed she had ended her relationship with her partner, but it appears that she has continued their affair. Furthermore, she had already married him and had a child with him. Now that they had a child together, all of their love and affection was directed toward their child. As a result, this child was regarded as an obstacle. What a selfish parent. No, they are only parents in name. They are not parents or humans. The stories I heard, one after another, were all unbelievable. The child was not even allowed to attend kindergarten, after all. That interaction with other children, their age is critical for children at this age, because it is the first step in learning social skills. They receive all kinds of stimulation and grow up. Despite this child has not said a single word since he arrived at our house. I'm not even sure if he can talk as much as other children his age. Furthermore, he was severely punished when he cried. Even adults cry from time to time. So how can a child not? My husband's ex-wife and her husband had gone on an overnight trip with only their child. My husband's child was left alone to take care of the house. Now, it's more like he was abandoned at home. What's causing this tightness in my chest? It's as if all of my sad feelings have gathered inside of me. It's such a complex emotion that I don't want to end it with the word sympathy. Fortunately, the courier happened to come across my husband's child and took him into custody. To be honest, it was quite a scary experience. I had no experience raising a child, and I hadn't met or known my husband's child. To live with and support a traumatized and emotionally disturbed child. I'm not sure I'm up for such a big responsibility. But even if it is impossible for me to take in and raise a child, I will do everything I can until the situation settles down. But about a year has passed since then. The three of us then decided to try to live together. In the end, my husband wanted to live with the child, and I accepted it. I understood how he felt, and I was relieved that, unlike his ex-wife and her husband, he was a decent person. However, I couldn't decide whether we could live together in this manner indefinitely. So we've come to the conclusion that we should wait until the children have settled down for the time being. The discussion about custody took longer than I expected. However, my husband's ex-wife's parents and her husband's parents intervened, and this situation was eventually resolved. My husband's ex-wife's husband's parents were furious at their stepson's neglect and abuse, and the ex and her husband moved in with them. I'm sure that they will no longer trust their son and daughter-in-law who would do such a thing. They should be worried about their grandchildren too. As for us, our child recently started calling me Mom. Somehow I accepted it without feeling strange about it. What makes me the happiest is that the child has begun to smile and tell me about her day. His smiles are really cute. I hope the child will continue to smile a lot in the future. I adore the child. She smiles when I tie her hair and when I put it in pigtails. She's definitely cuter than any other girl. When I first met at the door, she was so young and her hair was so short that I thought she was a boy. But in fact, she was such a cute angelic girl. She even clings to me while sleeping. Not to my sleeping husband, but to me, it's true. She's even more adorable. I want to have a baby, but I think I'll wait a little longer to see how my daughter is doing. We've only been living together for a year, but I want to keep my precious daughter happy. She's no longer my stepdaughter, but rather my lovely daughter. We have a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. It happened on one Christmas day. On Christmas Eve, after the kids have gone to bed, we gently place toys under their pillows. When the kids wake up the next morning and discover their toys, they usually say, Now, Santa'd come, and they begin to play with them with enthusiasm. This is a scene that can be found in any home, but our children look forward to Christmas more than any other time of year. They write letters to Santa every year as Christmas approaches. Every day in mid-December, they ask their mother, "Is Santa coming again this year? When is he coming?" It seems as though they can't wait for Santa to come. As usual, I hid the toys beneath the children's pillows near their letters to Santa Claus. I've gotten used to placing them gently so as not to wake them up. The kids are sensitive, so the slightest noise wakes them up. It's too early. They need to sleep more deeply. The next morning, when the kids wake up, Santa gave me a present. And with that, I thought they would be happy as usual. At least, that's what I believed. The toy I bought for my son was a computer for children. My son wanted one with his favorite character printed on it. It appeared to be a product of a well-known cartoon character, and it was extremely difficult to obtain. If you buy online, the packaging for Christmas is simple, so we always went to the toy store and had them put a fancy ribbon on it. Our younger daughter wanted a Playhouse kit. It was also a character from a girls' comic book. I was getting ready for the event when I realized, nostalgically, that what children want hasn't changed since the old days. The children and parents' favorite part is watching them jump up and down when the wrapping paper is ripped. My wife began filming with her smartphone camera, anticipating such reactions. Just as we had hoped, the kids happily ripped the wrapping paper and jumped up and down with delight. My daughter immediately took out the Playhouse set and began playing with her mother. My son was also excited, but when he turned on the toy computer he'd been longing for, an incident occurred. It wouldn't turn on no matter how hard I tried. Even after checking the batteries and reading the manual, it would not work at all. Yes, my son's toy had an initial failure and it was broken. My daughter was having a good time with her gift, but my son couldn't play with his. Only my son was crying, and I felt sorry for him. I waited until lunchtime and called the toy store where I bought it. The person in charge replied with this response, "Oh, is it broken? I'm sorry to hear that. In that case, it is an initial failure. Because it is under warranty, please contact the manufacturer's customer service center. I'll give you the phone number." I was perplexed, but my wife dialed the toy manufacturer's phone number that he had given us. As you can see, calling a toy manufacturer on Christmas Day is difficult. I kept calling until late afternoon, about 4 times an hour. I may have called at an inconvenient time, but I was unable to speak with anyone. After lunch, my son finally started crying. I could see why he was upset because he couldn't play with his new toy. But my wife was getting frustrated watching him cry. "Stop crying!" She yelled at him. I felt very sad because the atmosphere was not like the usual happy Christmas I had imagined. When I got tired of waiting, my wife called the toy store where we bought the toy again around 4 p.m. The same person as before answered the phone, but "I'm sorry, but we can't do anything about it." That's what he kept saying. I tried to control my rage by asking my wife to pass me the phone and saying, "It's Christmas Day and I know that you're busy, so I'm sorry to call you about the problem. It's okay if you can't repair it." I asked my wife to pass the phone to me because I had something I needed to tell you. Yes. The shop employee was becoming more and more alarmed. I'm sure he was worried about what I would say to him now that I was on the phone. I didn't care. I continued. "Do you know what I bought at your store?" It was a PC. Santa Claus exists in the minds of children. And on Christmas Eve, children stay up late trying to meet Santa Claus. After an hour or two, there is no sign of Santa Claus. Eventually, they fall asleep, unable to resist the desire to sleep. However, there are toys left by their pillow the next morning. When they see the toys, they are convinced that Santa exists and happily play with them. I paid for the dream and the children's excitement. What I purchased from your store was more than a toy. It's the emotion in the dream. So I want you to realize how important it is for them to be able to play with this toy during the holidays. That's all I want you to understand. I know you always wrap the toys so carefully. I thought that you would understand my feelings. But I'm sorry. I told him that, and that's when I was about to hang up the phone. The shopkeeper spoke while stumbling over words. "Sir, may I have a moment of your time? The children's computer you purchased is a very popular item. We currently don't have it in stock here." I felt an emotion in my chest when I heard that, thinking that he had bothered to look into it. But if I look in our branch stores, there might be at least one. If there is one, I'd like to hand it over to you today. Could you please give me some time? Seriously, if that is true, my son will be very happy. I appreciate your help. With that, I hung up the phone. I hung up the phone, praying that the item would be available, my heart racing with excitement. At 6 p.m., while eating dinner, I was anxiously awaiting the doorbell to ring. But by 8 p.m., there was no sign of anyone coming. The children were all getting ready to sleep and went to bed. He probably didn't make it in time, or he couldn't find one. This year's Christmas disappointed me. But just as I was about to give up and tell myself that there was nothing I could do, it was around 9 o'clock. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. Knowing it was him, I gave a fist pump. I tried to stay calm and went to the front door, leaving the kids in their room. When I opened the door, there stood the man holding a toy computer that my son had requested. And he was dressed as Santa Claus. I was astonished. What? Are you Santa Claus? I couldn't stop myself from saying it out. The man said in a small voice. I apologize for my slow reaction to the malfunction. I'll get the one that's broken first. I'm sorry it took so long, but I have a new one for you. I will act as Santa Claus. Could you please call your son? I have a vague image of someone. A man in a suit bringing a replacement tie. But it was Santa Claus, standing in front of me. I was so excited that I went to call the kids. Come on down, kids. Sorry. The children rushed down the stairs to see what was going on. And the moment they saw him, Santa! It's Santa Claus! One moment they were surprised. The next they were jumping up and down. Santa squatted down, looked the children's eyes and said, Ho, ho, ho! I'm sorry. I was so busy, and I accidentally brought you a broken toy. Here you go. I'm sorry for being late. This one works fine. If you behave well and listen to your dad and mom, I will come back next year at that. He patted my son on the head. I took the kids back to their room and thanked the man. Thank you very much. You really helped in keeping my children's dreams alive. I appreciate that you bothered to dress up as Santa. Then he said, Your phone call made me realize something important. What we sell is not toys. We are selling dreams and excitement. I've been so busy that I had forgotten what was important. Thank you for letting me realize that. As on the contrary, thank you very much. I can't believe you did this for us. I'll keep buying toys from your store for the rest of my life. But your action moved me. I told him that. Tears were falling from Santa Claus' eyes. Seeing this, I couldn't help but cry as well. I realized that Santa Claus is not only in the hearts of children, but also in the hearts of adults. Thank you very much, Santa Claus of the Toy Star. One day, when I was in 8th grade. See you later. As usual, I spoke to my parents. Okay, take care. Y'all have a good day. I heard my parents respond to me. Free day. I walked to school with a friend. She comes to my house, meets me there, and we go to school together. We would frequently talk about the day's classes, or the TV show we had watched the day before on the way to school. Did you watch the TV last night? I did. Wasn't it interesting? Yes, it was hilarious. This was a common topic of discussion among middle school girls. We arrived at school while still chatting like this. Time really flies when you are with friends. However, such a pleasant time did not last for me. Mr. Taylor, my teacher, approached me after the lunch break and shortly before the next class. Pack your belongings and come to the teacher's office. He told me to come to the teacher's office. I was surprised to hear that I needed to get ready to leave at noon. But based on his tense tone, I knew it was unusual. So I prepared to leave right away and went to the teacher's office. I knocked on the teacher's office door. Excuse me, what happened? I asked in my usual tone. Then Mr. Taylor said, I'll tell you all about it in the car. Just get in my car and we'll head to the hospital. Friend, to the hospital? I saw it. Seeing my normally calm teacher in such a hurry made me nervous. I wondered if anything had happened to my family. I got into Mr. Taylor's care nervously. Mr. Taylor, what happened? I immediately asked. Then Mr. Taylor gulped down his spit and said, Alex, listen to me calmly. I just got a call from the hospital that your father collapsed. I don't know what's going on yet, but they wanted you to go to the hospital as soon as possible, so we're heading there. I was speechless when I saw Mr. Taylor's expression as he said this. My dad was well until this morning, but what do you mean he collapsed? I couldn't believe it, but judging by Mr. Taylor's expression, it had to be true. And when I arrived at the hospital, my dad, who had been in such good health, had already passed away. He appears to have died as a result of a stroke. I couldn't stop crying because of the unexpected separation from my dad. I had no idea my first experience with the loss of a family member would be so traumatic. Then, at the worst possible moment, something even worse occurred. I overheard a conversation between my relatives who had rushed to the hospital after learning that my dad had collapsed. I can't believe he passed away. It's so sad. Yes, it is. But I believe his daughter is even sadder. You were absolutely right. Even if she wasn't his biological daughter, even if they weren't blood relatives, I'm sorry she lost her foster parent at such a young age. They were most likely referring to me when they said daughter, when I overheard such a conversation. Huh. What's going on? I muttered to myself. My relatives were still talking about other things and were completely unaware of my presence. Their voices, however, did not enter my mind. So my dad and mom weren't my real family. I panicked. The worst thing happened twice in a row. As an 8th grader, it was difficult for me to process these, and I couldn't think of anything else. A few days later, the day of my dad's funeral arrived. Little by little, I finally calmed down. Following the funeral, I decided to ask my mom if the conversation between our relatives, it was true. Well, Mom, I want to ask you something. Mom was depressed as a result of her husband's death, but she desperately tried to put on her usual smile. What is it? What's wrong? She answered. I was relieved and hesitant at the same time when I saw her smile, but I asked her about the case. I overheard our relatives discussing it the other day. Is it true that we aren't really related? That can't be true, right? But she was taken aback and looked down silently. And because Mom never opened her mouth, I kept speaking. Can you explain it to me? Is that true? Then, with an embarrassed expression on her face, she nodded. It's true that we are not a real family, but I've always thought of you as my real family. My real parents apparently divorced when I was young, and one of them was usually forced to take me in. But neither of my parents wanted to take me in, and they placed me in an institution. My current parents picked me up when I was about 2 years old. I was still a small child at the time and had no recollection of this, so I had been living with my parents as if they were my biological parents. I was devastated when my mom told me this. I felt as if everything up to that point had been a lie and that my parents had betrayed me. After that moment, I began to hate my mom. I even hated my late dad. My family was not well off to begin with. To make matters worse, my mom had to go to work after my dad died. She worked from night to morning at a nearby market and from noon to night at a supermarket. All of this was for me, but at the time, even that annoyed me. My school schedule and my mom's return from the market sometimes coincided. I was going to school with my friend, and I didn't want my friend to know that the person who was exhausted after work was my mom. We occasionally happened to run into each other. Have a good day. When my mom said that to me, I ignored her and said to my friend, who was she? Isn't she a little gross? I even talked badly about her. My mom kept her eyes down and walked quickly past me from that day on, possibly sensing my attitude. Nonetheless, my mom never complained and worked tirelessly for me. Such days continued for about a month. It was at the time during English class at school. I was assigned to write an essay. The topic was my appreciation for my mom. The task was to compose a 4-page essay. I was annoyed as to why they assigned me such a task at this time. But complaining wasn't going to make this assignment disappear. However, because my current mom was not my biological mother, I was at a loss for what to do. Mr. Taylor said, make sure you get it done until the next class, and he left the classroom. I was given an assignment that I really didn't want to do, so I decided to speak with Mr. Taylor directly, in the hopes that he would simply assign me a different task. You can tell how much I hated this assignment. Mr. Taylor, my mom is not my biological mother. What should I do? When I asked, Mr. Taylor looked like he didn't quite understand. Huh? What do you mean? Are you fabricating such a story because you don't want to write an essay? He asked me back. I denied it because it wasn't a lie. And I explained my family situation to Mr. Taylor, that my biological parents divorced when I was very young, and then neither of my parents wanted to take me in, so I was sent to an institution. Then my current parents took me in. I told him everything. So what? You have a mom, don't you? If she's willing to go to that much trouble for you, she's definitely your real mom. He simply said that and left. But on his way out, I expect you to write an excellent essay. He said that to me. But as I told you, she's not my mom. I murmured in my head. But at the moment in my head, I kept repeating to myself what Mr. Taylor had told me, that I did have a mother. The next day, it was raining hard that day. I saw my mom coming back from the market, wearing a raincoat as I walked to school. As usual, she was silent, but she appeared depressed, lonely, and in pain. Seeing her, I suddenly felt sorry for her and burst into tears. I finally realized what I was doing. Just what I was doing. I have no idea as to why I thought of my mom as annoying despite her exhaustion. She was the one who had raised me. Tremendous regret washed over me. My friend had already arrived at the meeting point, but I dashed to my mom, unconcerned about whether or not my friend was watching me. But because my feet were already moving before I could think, when I finally got to her, I had no idea what to say to her. Without thinking, I said, "See you later." That was it. That was all I could say. But my mom looked surprised for a moment, then smiled happily and said, "Have a good day," in a cheerful voice. My mom looked at me, waved, and smiled as I returned to my friend. Then, "Who is that?" my friend asked me. I used to despise it when people referred to her as my family, but the words just came out of my mouth today. Ends. She's my mom, regardless of what the family registration says. I now believe she is my true mom. At first, I couldn't even write an essay. But after that, I could have written a much longer essay than 10 pages. However, because that was the assignment rule, I expressed it in 4 pages and gave it to my mom. She read it right away and started to cry. Seeing her made me feel happy. I will never be able to repay my mom's kindness. My mom says that's what moms are for. But that doesn't convince me. As her daughter, I now want to look after my mother. I am very happy that she is my mom. It is 7:16 in the morning. I take that train to school every day as a high school student. I sat on a bench set up on the platform that day because I still had some time before boarding the 7:16 train. As I sat and waited calmly for the train, an old man sat down next to me. In his hand was a small bouquet of orange flowers. As I gazed at the bouquet, my eyes met his. Beautiful flowers, aren't they? It's stunning. I'm particularly fond of the orange flowers. The old man happily showed me the bouquet. His sweet smile was endearing, and I quickly became friends with him and discussed a variety of topics with him. "Where are you heading?" "Now I'm going to give this bouquet to someone." "This bouquet is for someone. Now that I'm older, I'm not sure if I should say this, but I'm going to see someone I love." He said that to me with a little embarrassment. I found him so charming. I was about to ask him who he had planned to give the bouquet to, but I felt it would be impolite to ask him that, so I didn't. Then I boarded the train with him, and we arrived at the station where I was leaving. I had to say goodbye to him. I hope I see him again tomorrow at the station. If I see you again, let's chat. My name is Jack. I am Emily. See you later. Mr. Jack, did that promise? I walked to the nearest station the next day to catch the 7:16 train. I went there early that day as well, giving myself some extra time. I was wondering if I would see Mr. Jack again. When I arrived at the platform, there was no one sitting at the bench. Is he not coming today? Good morning. Oh, Emily, I'm glad to see you again today. Mr. Jack called out to me, and in his hand was the same bouquet as yesterday. Are you going to give it to the same person today? That's right. I decided to go give it to her every day. Mr. Jack responded once more with the same happy expression he had yesterday. That's why the orange bouquet? She's always liked the color orange. She's very attractive. I get along well with her, and she does as well. Mr. Jack started to brag about his girlfriend a little bit. That person must mean a lot to you. I'm excited to meet someone like that as well. Yes, she's really important to me. Don't worry, there's no need to rush. Next, Emily, you are still young and have plenty of time to find someone important. I was envious when I heard Mr. Jack's story. I was also curious about the person he loved. After that, it became our routine to chat until the 7:16 train arrived. We talked about many things. Mr. Jack's background, my issues, his back pain, our stories. However, such a pleasant time suddenly ended. Mr. Jack stopped coming to the nearest station. I kept waiting for him. Every day, I left the house early and dashed to the nearest station, but he was nowhere to be found on the platform bench. Instead of waiting on the platform, I waited at the stairs of the nearest station one day. Then a middle-aged man approached me who I didn't recognize. Lectures. Are you by any chance Emily? He caught me by surprise. How did he know my name? I got scared and tried to run away from him. I'm Jack's son. I'm Dialect. I was surprised when he said so. Jack? He's referring to Mr. Jack. Actually, my dad has been ill for several months now and is in the hospital. He's not in good health. And to be honest, I don't know how long he'll live. When he said that, my mind went blank. Mr. Jack never told me something like that. Jack's son continued, Emily's waiting for me at that station, so you go to that station and tell her she doesn't have to wait for me any longer. That's what my dad asked me to do. And I've been looking for you for a long time. I cried, partly because of my sadness, but most importantly because of my frustration and disappointment at not realizing Mr. Jack was in such a difficult situation. I couldn't stop crying. Grecian, Kramers, if it's possible, could you visit my dad? He's been wanting to see you for a long time. Please. I want to meet Mr. Jack too. That day after school, I went to the hospital where Mr. Jack was hospitalized. This is my dad's room. He had an exam earlier, so he could be tired and sleeping. It's okay. I entered the hospital room but came to a halt in front of his bed. Mr. Jack looked very frail and different from usual. He appeared to be thin with sunken cheeks. It was painful and hard for me. I sat on the chair next to his bed and waited for him to wake up. After a while, Emily, Mr. Jack looked at me with a surprised look on his face. I came here because I wanted to see you. You came all this way? I'm so happy. I missed you too. Mr. Jack and I took each other's hands, and we both cried. I kept crying. Mr. Jack was crying too. I continued to cry as my unspoken thoughts became tears. Thank you very much for making the effort to come all the way out here to see me. And I apologize for not being able to see you. No need to apologize. All that matters to me is that I'm happy to see you again like this. We had a lot of catching up to do. We had a good time for the first time in a long time. Mr. Jack was laughing. I was laughing a lot. And I was really happy. Then Mr. Jack told me something. Please allow me to explain something that has been bothering you. Oh, Emily. It's about the person I was giving the bouquet to. Mr. Jack had noticed what I was most concerned about. She's my wife. It's not like we live apart. She died of cancer about 10 years ago, but I never gave her a bouquet when she was still alive. I finally realized how important she was to me after she died. That's why I went to my wife's cemetery every day to deliver flowers. Mr. Jack took the train early every morning to visit his wife's cemetery to deliver a bouquet. I burst into tears again. I couldn't stop crying because of Mr. Jack's love for his wife and his kindness to her. While I was crying, Mr. Jack kept petting my head with that same kind of smile. When it was time for me to leave, I appreciate everything you did today. My dad was happy for the first time in a long time, so I was happy as well. Mr. Jack's son told me that. I apologized for dropping by on him so unexpectedly. When I replied, his son thanked me repeatedly, but then I heard the truth that sent me to the bottom. They recently informed him that he only has a few days to live and that he could die at any time. I was shocked and didn't want to believe it, so I ran out of the hospital as fast as I could, desperately trying to escape that reality. Why? Mr. Jack, why is this happening to such a kind man? It is too soon. Why? When I got home, I stayed in my room for a long time. I thought about what I could do for Mr. Jack. As a result, I came up with an idea. I went to the hospital to see him again. I decided to tell him about the pleasant events of the day. I wanted him to smile and get better, even if just a little. Whenever I had time, I went to the hospital and told Mr. Jack many things. But those days came to an end. His son called to tell me that Mr. Jack was already in critical condition, so I rushed to the hospital. He had already died when I arrived at the hospital and entered his room. I broke down in tears. Memories of Mr. Jack and everything we had discussed flooded my mind. Because to me, Mr. Jack was an important person. Despite the fact that we are not blood relatives and have not known each other for a long time, we felt something more. He was truly invaluable to me. I still take the 7.16 train to school. Sometimes I leave early and sit on a bench until the train arrives. I suddenly recall Mr. Jack's timid smile. At such times, I look over to the empty seat next to me on the bench. I remember his kindness and feel a warmth in my heart. I went to a technical school to become a nurse when I was approximately 20 years old. I was on a 6-month internship in a hospital at the time, and what I am about to tell you happened during that period. A woman with terminal cancer was hospitalized to the ward I oversaw, and she was quite nice and peaceful. Noah was the name of the woman's 3rd-grade kid. I was impressed by how Noah came in every day after school and chatted joyfully with his mother. I was in charge of that woman alongside the chief, so I had plenty of opportunities to speak with Noah. I was delighted Noah got along well with me, maybe because I was the youngest in the ward and he felt connected to me. I received a letter from Noah asking for my advice one week before the conclusion of my internship. The consultation was, I'd like to give my mom a gift to cheer her up, but I only have $3 in my pocket. What can I get for this money that will make a woman happy? That was what he asked me. When I received this question, I felt pain in my heart. That was because Noah was unaware that his mother had cancer and would not live for long. But Noah wanted his mother to recover, so he approached me for help. I cannot possibly trample on his feelings. I responded with a letter, and I promised to accompany Noah to a department store leader to pick out a gift that would make his mother happy. When Noah read the letter, he grinned, and I recall how thrilled I was. The day had arrived. I had no idea how I was going to meet Noah. He really wanted his mother to get well. What should I say to him, or how should I look at him? I've been thinking about it since the day I scheduled the appointment. However, I never reached a decision, and the day of the appointment arrived. As I was thinking about it, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. I heard a little boy's voice. I quickly stopped thinking and smiled as I turned towards the voice. I just got here too. I was embarrassed because it sounded like something I would say to my partner. But I think I did a good job of shifting my facial expression quickly. And then I said to Noah, well, let's go. And we headed into the department store. As we were walking inside the department store, I wondered if Mom is on a diet. She doesn't eat at all and seems to be forcing herself to smile. Should I get her something for her diet? Noah said to me, I was in a lot of agony. Noah had no idea his mother's illness had progressed to the point where she was unable to eat. I tried to distract myself from the bitterness in my heart. And how about writing a letter? Maybe your letter will make her feel better. I felt guilty for saying that. That was very irresponsible of me. But Noah, who did not know about his mother's condition. A letter, you say? That's embarrassing. But next time, I'll try to write it on colored paper. He responded like that. I felt a little relieved after hearing those remarks. So I made the following suggestion. Hey, how about some flowers? Women feel very happy when they receive flowers. Flowers? I'm not sure if the money I have will be enough to buy them. But it would be sad if they were there, so I think I'll go with the cactus. He agreed with my suggestion. I decided to think of more ideas while looking around the flower shop. Noah came up with ideas one after the other while I was thinking about mine. Mom's hands were cold, so what about gloves? Oh, but she can only use them in winter. Mom said she wanted to eat caviar. Can we buy some? It's difficult to find any of these items for $3. However, Noah's remarks about his mother nearly brought tears to my eyes. My heart began to hurt at the same time. I tried to give back-channel feedback to distract myself, but my heart was still aching. Then Noah stopped in the middle of the passage. I peeked past Noah's eyes and noticed that it was a shoe store. Noah looked at me and said, I've decided. He told me that. As I'm naturally said, I'm going to get her shoes. I want to go back to the aquarium where I was to go with my mom when I was a kid. And I want to go to many other places with Mom. Noah's eyes twinkled as he spoke. Of course, shoes cannot be purchased for $3. While I was unsure what to do, Noah said he was going to the restroom next to the shoe store and ran. While Noah was in the washroom, I approached the shoe store employee and requested him to assist me in purchasing the shoes for $3. I asked him if Noah could buy them for $3. Could you please assist him in purchasing them for $3? Oh, sure. I'll make up the difference afterwards. The clerk smiled. If that's the case, that's fine. I will be delighted to help you. And he accepted it kindly. I went into the shoe store with Noah, who had just returned from the lavatory. There were bits of paper everywhere stating that all of the shoes were $3. They were scrawled on the back of some papers in a hurry. The handwriting was a little sloppy, but the fact that he had written it so quickly warmed my heart. Noah said, I'm going for these, and he chose a pair of white heels. It was a lovely pair of shoes, perfect for someone gentle and serene like Noah's mother. He took them to the cashier, paid $3, and received the items. I said to Noah, could you please wait a moment outside the shoe store? I need to speak with the clerk. And I asked him to wait outside. I went to the clerk and asked, thank you very much. How much is the rest? But the clerk replied, the price was $3, so you owe me nothing. And he smiled. I was filled with gratitude, with tears in my eyes. I resolved to purchase shoes from this store the next time I visited. Thank you so much. I bowed and headed outside where Noah was waiting. I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. I called out to Noah, and he smiled at me. Not at all. Are you done talking to him? He asked me. Noah smiled at me as he gripped the box in which the heels he had purchased were beautifully packaged. Versus I can't wait to see my mom's happy face. Since he said so, we decided to head to the hospital on that very same day. Mom, I got you a gift. Noah opened the door of the hospital room with a loud voice and a smile. He approached his mother and offered her the white-heeled shoes he had purchased that day. When his mother saw what was inside, she started to cry. "Oh, thank you." "No, Noah, this is the first time in my life that I have received such a nice present." Noah blushed slightly when he heard his mother's words. But Noah's mother continued with a truly sad look on her face. "Thank you so much, but I'm sorry. I may not be able to put on these shoes and go out anymore. I'm sick and I might die soon," she told Noah. I believe it was a difficult decision for her to share this information with Noah at that time. Sure enough, Noah was so surprised that he turned his head down, but the depression was brief, and he quickly looked up, looked his mother in the eyes, and said, "Don't give up. You taught me a long time ago that if I smile and work hard, good things will happen to me. I'll always be by your side, so don't give up, Mom. Let's go to the aquarium together. I got these in a large size so you can wear them all the time." Noah's mother must have been overjoyed to hear Noah's supportive comments. She smiled, even as tears spilled down her cheeks. "Why are you crying? It's all right. People who give it their all every day will become stars even if they die. If I look at the sky, I'll be able to find you, so I won't be lonely at all. Don't worry." Hearing these words, she wiped away her overflowing tears and hugged Noah with a smile. "You're correct. I will not give up. I'm not worried since I have you, someone who is tough and hardworking, so we'll definitely go to the aquarium." When she said that, Noah hugged her back. "It's a promise. If you give up, I won't forgive you." He told her that it was tough for me to completely comprehend Noah's and his mother's emotions. From the West, I could sense the warm relationship between the two of them in my heart. 10 years have passed since then. Soon after, I finished my internship and stopped going to the hospital. I don't know what happened to Noah and his mother, but I was expecting a nice conclusion for them. I really wanted them to be happy. I'm sure Noah had probably grown up to be a fine person. When he was in the 3rd grade of primary school, he was already a fine young man with a strong heart. When I returned home with these thoughts, I discovered a letter in my mail similar to the one I had previously received. I didn't hesitate to reach for the letter and see who it was from because I was just reminiscing about those days. Sure enough, it was from Noah. I felt very happy and immediately opened the letter. Noah's handwriting was lovely, as if he had been a different person at the time, but it was unmistakably his. "Hello, it's been a long time. It's Noah. I guess it's been about 10 years. I really wanted to contact you as soon as possible. However, I was unable to reach you, so please accept my apologies for the delay in contacting you. I'm sorry." When I read that far, I couldn't help but laugh. Noah used to be so innocent and enthusiastic that I couldn't imagine him speaking in such polite terms now. But I really wanted to tell you something, so that's why I'm writing this letter to you. There's some things that I'd like to tell you, such as what happened between me and my mom. After that day, I'd appreciate it if you would read it all the way through. An update on what happened after that, which I was interested in. I was excited to read it. After that, my mom fought cancer without giving up. Her condition improved slightly, and she was able to go out for half a day. The doctors at the hospital said it was a miracle she was allowed to go out because she had only 3 months to live. And I was able to go to the aquarium I wanted to go to at the time with my mom, who was wearing those white heels. I was so happy. I'll never forget that last aquarium memory. 3 months later, my mom passed away. I was very sad, but in the end, I was given a memory that I will cherish for the rest of my life. And I decided to live my life with those memories in my heart. I am truly grateful to my mom. When I read that, tears welled up in my eyes. Thank God, thank God. I mumbled to myself. There was also something unexpected written in the letter. I am also grateful to you. I appreciate your assistance back then. I wouldn't have been able to make my last memory with my mother if you hadn't been there for me. And you made it possible for me to buy those white-heeled shoes for $3. I really thought it was $3 at the time. However, a few years later, I returned to that store and discovered the truth. I found out that you were going to pay the rest. I was so happy at the time that I burst into tears. Because of you, I was able to live my life without feeling discouraged after my mom died. I wanted to show you my appreciation in this way. I'm truly grateful to you. Thank you very much. Please take care of yourself and live a long life. Tears flowed unceasingly from my eyes. Noah's really a strong boy. He told me to live long, so I'll do my best to live as long as I can, as strong, honestly, and as hard as Noah.